So glad you joined us here today for a full review of the Toyota Camry. And if you're a subscriber, you can always state your review wishes, and this one was really wished by a lot of people. That's why we are doing it here today. In exterior, interior and the driving experience with the Camry Hybrid. That's also the version you desired most. So let's dig deeper here, and I'll also tell you why I'm pretty excited to do this one here today. Has also a story behind it. And everything with Thomas in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! Looking at the front here, I think a very sporty, likable one, especially in this lower area here with, it's suggesting a very sporty car, which is not the main focus of it. And I think it's a rather fluent design, thinking about other recent Toyota designs where they more have like, a little bit also like Lexus samurai sword designs. Yeah, not that a fan, but this one here, I really like from design. What's your take on that? Since it's the hybrid model, also has the blue Toyota badge there in the front. Headlamps come with LED standard. Then LED daytime running light in this 3-stripe design. So overall, again, quite sporty, very likable from the front. And it almost looks like, a very powerful sedan. There are also more powerful engines available, but today we have the hybrid Focus. By the way, also interesting info is in Japan it's also sold under the name of Daihatsu Altis, and the code, or this generation name, is called XV70, so Toyota Camry XV70 if you want to differentiate it to another generation. For length, we're at 4.88 meters, 16 foot or 192 inches, and for a mid-size sedan that's actually quite long already. So most of the competitors in this segment are a little bit shorter. So this one here a little bit between mid-size segment and upper mid-size segment, so to say. 17 to 18 inch wheels. Those ones here are the optional 18-inch wheels. Depending on the market, for example, in Germany, you only get a high trim spec, by the way, hybrid badge right there. And then a sleek design here, mid-size sedan shape, dropping line here at height of the door handles, and quite some nice strong shoulders in this area here. And I've been waiting quite a lot of time to review this car. That's why it's also special to me. Oh yeah, that's the keyless entry function, but I have the ignition on that we can see the daytime running lights and so on, therefore it was beeping now. So Jonas and I were in Detroit Motor Show 2017 and reviewed this all-new generation, and so I had to wait until now, because now this car is also again available in Europe. Predominantly, of course, the US market for this vehicle here, but again, interesting that they now also have in Europe. That's also the reason we can drive this one here today. Hope you're looking forward as much to it as I do. And here we end with this very sleek rear. So the rear is also quite sporty. Do I see a little bit Ford Mondeo? I'm not sure. See here this LED backlight. It's also a beautiful design, definitely, and also a pretty simple design in the rear. I like that. And we do not have any fake exhaust pipes. This is a real exhaust right there. And one of the most interesting aspects of this one is price performance. If you think about it, it starts at $24K in the US and $28K as a hybrid. That's really decent considering also the size of the car. And if you think then for like 30K, you get a really decent trim already. Don't have to go highest trim. Here in Germany, they, go for highest trim only. So you pay about 40K in euros. But that's still somewhat decent if then compare the competitors. And this one is even longer than most of the competitors. Yay! We have hydraulic struts. Way to go! So this one here, the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated hybrid engine. In the EU we have 218 horsepower, other markets have 200 horsepower. It depends also on the unit. That's the total system output. 8.3 seconds is the acceleration to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. Front wheel drive only. And then there are also non-hybrid engines. For example, in Asia you have a 2 liter NA with 150 horsepower. In the US, you also get this one, the 2.5 liter NA, just without the hybrid with 200 horsepower. And then there's also, especially for the US, the 3.5 liter V6 with 300 horsepower, which would be the sportiest one. Interior, even with soft touch materials at the inside of the doors, even in the upper part, nicely done. Then some very slim door pockets, hardly can store anything there. A nice Camry entry badge and also Camry logo at the floor mats right there. Then we have some leatherette cover right here at the dashboard, and also the upper dashboard area right there is soft touch. Steering wheel we know from other Toyota vehicles as well. Then those ones here are the animal skin seats, which are optional and not necessary, but Toyota does offer a lot of animal-friendly choices in the LE trim, for example, fabric in black, grey and beige, those three colors. And the Softex, this is their high-grade leatherette make. That one then would look almost the same, and it's available in black or grey, but grey strangely not for the hybrid. Yeah, and of course it depends on market to market. But again, you can get also different nice choices. So overall, you think the design is actually quite attractive. More to that very soon with the cockpit overview. So getting inside is quite easy. Shoe tab, electric seat control here. Of course, it starts with manual seats. Here we also have an electric steering support. Can turn on the ignition, then it starts beeping, of course. But here I can show that you can also control the steering wheel in an electric way. Yes, I turn it off again. Yeah, those cars that are beeping all the time, that's really annoying. Seating position is actually quite high for a mid-size sedan, so you don't sit like, into the ground. And it's, comfortable, definitely. Still have enough headroom left. 1.86 or 6'1", so no problem. Even for tall people, you'll find a very decent seating position here in the front. Interior overview, yeah. Soft touch here, so good materials here, nice leatherette cover. Then there's a wood effect look, which also looks quite cool. Yes, still separate climate knobs. I like that, to be able to control it while driving. Then this unit here, either 7-inch or this one 8-inch with the GPS then. Yeah, but the software, we can take a close look at that. That's really one of the weaknesses of this car. So door closing sounds and this infotainment system, probably the two biggest weaknesses. Also still a tune knob, and also for the volume, and that feels actually quite nice. What I like is this special design. See this joint. This is a really unique feature, and yeah, brings some sensual stuff to the car, so to say. Steering wheel then here, right side for cruise control, and the left side for the volume. Again, electric control. Then those instruments. Left and right you have some analog gauges, and the middle part that's for some digital like fuel info and so on. And in the lower part middle here you have an inductive charging pad for your phone, and USB device, and a 12-volt power supply. It's also closer than then the automatic shifting lever, driving modes next to adaptive cup holders, and they also fit for different sizes. And they obviously pay a lot of attention for the seat heating. Even 3 levels available, both co and passenger side. And last but not least, the middle armrest is quite well attached. And there's also reasonable space on the inside, but no additional USB port there. Here, of course, a special hybrid gauge, the analog one, where you can see when you are charging, recuperating energy into the battery and when the combustion engine is running. You also feel it, so to say, and then you also get an EV symbol here when you are in this EV mode. At the moment it's not available, but you get this green EV symbol, and you also know when you're driving pure electric. So infotainment system up close, starting here with the map. Well, you can zoom in and out here with pinching, but the software is definitely outdated, so it doesn't make the best impression. At least it's controllable with touch, and that's of course making it easier. Phone connection, there's also hotkey just with Bluetooth, because here in Europe at least they do not have licensing for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. might be different than on other markets. Then this is here the main menu. Again, you can access your Bluetooth phone right there. There's also an app view right there. Mirror link is available at least right here. And also interesting to have this energy monitor, so you can see what's on or what's off. So, you know, like when the engine is going directly to the wheels, front wheels here, or when something's been recharged here to the battery and so on. That's quite interesting to see, definitely. And last but not least, rear view camera. It's good to have one, of course, but the resolution definitely could be better. But here the helping lines go alongside. One thing I like about this very specific car is that we have a bright ceiling from the interior, and very interesting with this, you know, middle bar there. I'm not sure what's the reason for that, but it surely looks somehow special. And as for the rear, soft touch, even here at the inside of the doors at the rear. Nice. So, and then when we get inside right there, wow, there the length of the vehicle really plays a massive effect. I mean, look at that. Impressive. So if you think about cars which are even longer in the segment above that, like, you know, BMW 5 Series, Mercedes E-Class, Audi A6, they have way less legroom. So well done as for the legroom here. There's ample of space. And yeah, that might also be a reason why it's popular with Uber and Lyft drivers, because they have a lot of space then for the passengers in the rear as well. So, wow, this feels so spacious in here. Headroom wise, I mean, it is a design vehicle, so to say, has some falling roofline, but still it works here with the headroom also for tall people. But again, wow, this is like, yeah, Skoda Superb style as for the legroom we have here. Isofix outside of the seats. We cannot flip the seats from here. We have to release them from the trunk. What we can do is use this middle armrest right here, cup holders, and then in the middle part, there's somewhat a middle tunnel here, and then there are two USB devices. As for the trunk, you open it here at the far right side. Pretty small button, but when you know it's there, then you know it. So pretty cheap as for the sound, how the whole trunk feels. So that's one of the things I don't like about this vehicle. But then, wow, look at that. Massive amounts of space. Especially look at the width here. They used the whole wheel arch. That's incredible. I've never seen that anywhere. What? This is 160 in meters in width. What? Seriously? Wow. Well, I mean, then pretty amazed by that. But then, of course, here it gets a little bit more narrow, but you still reach, you know, more than 1 meter here in width, and then it gets a little bit closer right here. And I've already flipped one of the seats. You have to release them right here to pull it. And then you can release both sides, and then you have a massive step right there. And then it goes, yeah, about 2 meters up to the front seat, and the normal length here up to the rear seat is here about 1.15 meters. But definitely decent amount of space. It's not an estate, so you cannot load in and out things that easily, but still, yeah, this is about 50 centimeters in height, so that's no problem. So when you have a suitcase in here, like a cabin trailer like this, works like this, but it's also possible upright and still have some space left. So again, very large as for the trunk. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the Toyota Camry. Today here as a 2.5 liter NA hybrid. And the cool thing is, of course, especially when you start in the city or something, that you start in this EV mode, start silently, and as soon as you apply a little bit more throttle, then also the combustion engine goes on. So I also have this screen here where I can follow that. Not sure how well you can see that from the small camera. There it shows you when the battery is supporting, when it's being recharged, when you just roll or going downhill or something, and also when the combustion engine is active. On the Autobahn, of course, on the motorway, it doesn't make any difference if you're having the hybrid, because the consumption will be, yeah, more or less the same. Of course, when you roll, for example, or getting slower, then you can gain back some of the energy. That's of course good. And here, you know, at the normal standard speed here at the German motorway, 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, yeah, that's most of the time the standard speed, because not always you can drive so much faster. So noise insulation is, let's say, quite okay. We've experienced better also in this very segment, so it's not that this car is laid out for much higher speeds as for noise insulation. That's also, in like 9 out of 10 customers probably won't drive it very fast. So it's not the typical German motorway car, but actually feels quite cozy and comfortable here also on the motorway. I could imagine going a longer trip with this car immediately. That's actually no problem. It's still quite stable and sporty also at higher speeds. The steering wheel feeling is, not the most natural. It's very light, definitely, but it doesn't have a dead zone, so it does give you some precise reactions and so on. And this car is also packed with assistance systems. So, for example, I also have a traffic sign recognition, which is then showing me at the moment, which is the current allowed speed, and also, of course, the speed there's the blind spot monitor when cars are overtaking me, flashing then in this side mirror. And of course the adaptive cruise control, which I will test on the next motorway piece. So we'll mix it, of course, here as usual on Autoway, as usual on Autogefühl with the motorway and city driving and a little bit of countryside and so on. Here now when I'm rolling off on the brakes, going also with this analog meter here, showing me that I'm recharging, recuperating, or regenerative braking, some energy back to the battery. Combustion engine shuts off at the same time, and with Toyota or Lexus, I think it's really worth to go for the hybrid models because that's what they are, somehow their unique selling point. And here now again in this EV rolling mode, that's this case then good that we are in some traffic here now, because that's the benefit of the EV mode, that's the benefit of the hybrid. So other than that, only like those start-stop systems would work on normal combustion engine cars, and sometimes they are not really helpful for the engine. Here I'm still in the EV mode when I'm really light with the throttle, so I don't know, how fast they will be driving. Let's see, I'm still in the EV mode, so as long as I'm really light with the throttle, I will stick to the EV mode. If you want to push the EV mode a little bit further, there's also this EV mode button here. But at the moment it tells me hybrid battery is weak. On the other hand, it says like it's half full. So, it rather works at slower speeds and also when the battery is a little bit, a little bit more full. So, but with this EV mode button, you can, stress that a little bit that you want to stick to the EV mode. But most of the time you just leave it in the auto hybrid mode as it is right now, and then the car decides for itself. But I'm still in this EV mode, and that's of course good. Now I'm going downhill, so I can stay in this mode all the time. And that's definitely really, fuel saving then. So it always depends on the topography, of course, but clearly already shows me. So we'll also could do a short fuel economy test here, or mixed route, which could be also a typical work commuting route or so. And we had the experience with the Toyota Corolla hybrid as well. In the new generation, that their hybrid system is quite efficient, especially if you, also want to use it. Of course, if I hammer the throttle all the time and just drive motorway with high speed, won't be any effect. But then again, recently had the Lexus UX as a non-hybrid model, and that one was, especially in the city, not that good from the fuel economy. Yes, on the motorway, 6.5 liters, 1 kilometers, that's totally fine, definitely at steady speeds and so on. But then in the city, not that good. But that's exactly where the hybrid here steps in. So especially that you make it more economic in the city where you have a lot of stop and go and so on. And still, all the time I'm talking now, remaining in this EV mode because I'm rather rolling or just applying some throttle. And of course, now at the next red traffic light, sticking again to the EV mode, so I can really use it all the time now. And now the fuel consumption again dropped even further. That's of course pretty cool. Electric mirror control here, put it to the right or left, then I can control a little bit of that. That's also coming quite handy. So the car gives you actually a quite decent overview. It's a typical mid-size sedan, yes, but the design, although it looks quite spectacular from the outside, doesn't block your view too much when you're looking from the inside to the outside, It already gives me a quite good feeling. Yeah, as I said earlier, the infotainment unit is not the not the coziest one, so to say. At least I'm happy I can still use those temperature dials that I can make it warm or colder while driving. Also activate or deactivate the AC with one knob. That's cool. Yeah, other than that, controlling the infotainment system while driving is, not that good. So now, of course, I'm accelerating a little bit harder, then the combustion engine sets in, and it's this typical Toyota or Lexus feeling where they use either the CVT or in the hybrid models the so-called, whoa, that was an engine failure, some smoke coming out, some eCVT, not from our car, of course. So in the hybrid model, the so-called eCVT, which is not a pure CVT as would call it in the technology sense, more a planetary gearbox, but working like a CVT. So when for the customer, it doesn't change that much because the overall effect is always the same. It's that it's rather keeping at steady RPMs. You have a very smooth riding feeling when you're driving at lower speeds, but when you really hammer it, and I'll soon do also like a short acceleration test, and you really hammer it, then it's like, and it keeps the RPM. So again, for slow driving, it's comfortable and cozy to have that. And if you drive a little bit faster, accelerate on the motorway, then it doesn't sound that well. So I think for most use cases of this car, I think it's totally fine. And wow, we're now here at 4.5 liters in 1 kilometers. That's amazing as for the fuel economy. I'll also give you the MPG figures later on. Cannot calculate them in just by heart. Of course, when I accelerate a little bit more, then we get closer. So 5 liters in 1 kilometers is surely a realistic value. We can reach that if we, again, keep it rather steady. So there's normal driving mode, and there's also an eco driving mode that reduces the throttle input a little bit more. But again, usually I would just leave it in normal mode, and that's it, and let the car take care of that. So we're now at about 70 kilometers an hour, and we're going to accelerate up to 100, and I'll just use the kick down and we'll see what happens, because there is some 2.5 liters, some significant displacement, so it's not exactly a small engine. And I like to drive naturally aspirated engines because the power output is rather linear. It's not that you have this moment where a turbo sets suddenly in. So, but let's see what we can score. Plop, that's already 100. Decent. So for not having a turbo, the battery is also helping a little bit, and again, this 2.5 liter of displacement, it's really doing a good job there. So surprisingly agile acceleration. Nice, I like that. Hope you enjoyed it too. Now setting the adaptive cruise control, it's keeping also the distance to the car in front of me. At the moment there's no car in front of me, but as soon as I go into this lane, for example here, not decelerating, distance being kept, speed is being reduced a little bit. So far it makes a good impression. Let's see the transition when I go off to the other lane again. Now it's picking up the speed for itself. Yeah, so that was actually a quite smooth transition. I like that. It's not too windy today outside, maybe a little bit. I think it's still cozy at this speed, but they could have done maybe a little bit more as for sound insulation or noise insulation, but you clearly feel that this was not the focus of the car, because main markets definitely US and also Japan, and usually you don't reach so high speeds there, therefore it's not really that necessary. But overall it gives you a quite good driving feeling. The materials here, as we talked about earlier, are at some points quite nice. Some points you could say, maybe some tweaking here and there. But overall, I think it satisfies, a lot of needs you might want to have, when driving the segment. And a lot of Uber or Lyft drivers are also driving Camrys, for example, also, just to have enough space. And usually they also score quite good reliability figures. So if you have a Camry yourself, especially here in the new generation, please always feel free to give us some feedback also what experience you have. Suspension is rather soft, by the way. Sometimes when you hit some, bumps, damaged roads, you might think, that could be a little bit more comfort. When the road is, well done, it's actually no problem. Let's see now as for the agility. Yeah, I have to turn the steering wheel quite much, but the handling balance feeling is quite neutral. So it's of course not the sportiest sedan, but still feels agile enough, and you can have some driving fun indeed. Especially with the hybrid, you're not pulled into aggressive driving, you're more pulled into more comfortable driving. But I think, with the new platform they've been using here for the new generation, beginning from 2017, yeah, that's quite decent. Then again, some punch here from the 2.5 engine. I think it's still decently fun to drive with the vehicle. And again, you sit relatively high for a mid-size sedan. It doesn't go that low. And that's also good for this, overview just around. So you don't feel over as being in a sporty car. But again, I would still say it's fun. Just, this is a car where I would say this could be like a standard sedan, not meant in a bad way. And everything which is maybe worse than that is not so good. And from here you can start. And when you go a little bit, to the other direction, then you say, okay, when something is better than this, then it's probably like, pretty much premium and so on. I think the most important aspect here is, especially in the US, this has a very decent price for a mid-size sedan. In Germany, of course, it only comes in high spec, sadly, so you cannot pick a lower spec variant, therefore it's also more expensive. But still, if you then compare prices to some of the competitors, then it's not so bad as for the offering. And Toyota, for example, here in Germany or Europe, they also want to attract taxi customers, because again the hybrid system makes sense if in a taxi lane and go forward and stuff. Then it's so unnecessary to have the engine running all the time. Then just drive a step forward or maybe on off. There the hybrid system is really well done. And the Toyota Prius was also used for from taxi companies quite a lot, and they are actually quite happy with it. Again, good fuel economy that saves money, and again this EV mode then for those taxi lane waiting situations. So that might actually work, because the main taxi in Germany is the Mercedes E-Class, because there's also a special taxi offering for the E-Class where you can get it relatively cheaply with somewhat a low spec version, but still quite decent. The E-Class is upper mid-size segment, so would be a segment above this one here. But still, why not, being it a taxi alternative? It looks quite fresh on the outside, So I really like the design, as I said earlier, on the exterior, which I cannot say about all Toyota vehicles, but here actually quite likable, quite sporty. So yes, it does look sportier than it actually delivers from the driving experience. But again, not all cars have to be very sporty. It's totally fine when you set the car rather on a comfort level. And that's what I've also done with the suspension right here. So, a cozy, comfortable, standard sedan, so to say, for a decent price. And I think that's also a reason why this one is still somewhat of a bestseller. The new Corolla as a sedan is also an interesting alternative, because it's cheaper, it's a little bit smaller, but the new Corolla also offers some decent interior room. That's also why the Corolla Estate also replaces, the so far available bigger car in the Toyota lineup in Europe. It's also one of the reasons for that. So from driving the Corolla sedan, of course it's a little bit newer car, so some pieces felt a little bit fresher, newer, more evolved. The Corolla sedan was also, as it's a little bit smaller, a little bit more agile to drive. But indeed, since it's both the same company and comparable drivetrains and so on, same technology, they are also somewhat comparable in driving. So indeed, Corolla sedan and this one here, Camry sedan, they do come close. Also design-wise, they made the new Corolla sedan a little bit closer to this one here. Yeah, it's a tough question. I think you have to compare the prices for that. Again, depending also on the space you need. This one here, of course, with the larger trunk. This is one of the big differences. So if that one plays, for example, a big role for you. And again, I could use the EV mode quite a lot. So still now below 5 liters and 100 kilometers. And that's really high up in the MPG range. And that's again one of the big advantages of this car. And yeah, you know, some of the mid-sized competitors in this segment here, they may drive sportier, they might be more silent on the interior, especially on the motorway. They might have some more refined details here and there, but fuel economy wise, I think this one here is leading the way. And now to the conclusion for today with the Toyota Camry. Exterior design, I think pretty fresh, still sporty, and to me also one of my favorite Toyota designs. I don't like those design experiments, for example the Toyota CHR or something. And this one here I think is very elegant and sporty at the same time. The interior styling also goes in that direction, quite sensual. Yeah, infotainment system, you know, just forget it. Some tweaks here and there, but overall I think it's quite decent also from the interior, and also that they are offering a lot of animal-friendly materials, even if we didn't have that here today. And actually quite big trunk. Then the driving experience was pretty convincing because this one here is very calm and silent. Then excellent fuel economy with less than 5 liters or 100 kilometers. That's more than 47 mpg, more than 56 mpg UK. So very decent as for the fuel economy. That's also among the leading ones in the segment then here. It's not the sportiest one, so it doesn't drive that sporty as it looks. Suspension rather set on a very comfortable one. Yeah, bumps, it could even out a little bit better. Of course, also not a very sporty engine, but surprising good power still from this 2.5 liter NA. So it does have some decent power, even though if like this eCVT driving from the automatic transmission they use here doesn't deliver you the most sporty fun. But still you have also decent power if you do some motorway acceleration. And I've been using the EV mode, so the core thing of the hybrid, quite a lot. That works very well. And overall I think the most important point is that, especially in some markets like the US, this one is really a very decent price performance offering. What's your take here on the Camry? Please put it in the comments. Let's discuss it, and also see you next time.